Hello lovely people, welcome to my YouTube channel, Hey Spring Chicken. My name is Cordelia, and if you're a returning viewer, it's really good to have you back. And if you're new here, welcome. Today's topic is 10 things I quit in my 50s that have changed my life now in my 60s and allow me to be happier and more at peace. Amongst you may notice my voice is not great, and that is because editor and I have had a rather nasty virus, and whilst I was suffering this rather nasty virus, it allowed me to be reflective and to look at all of the things that have changed in my life. And I thought that this might be something that you guys would either benefit from or may be inspired by. And although this is very different to my makeup routines, stick with me. This may be something that you will like or that you will get something out of. Number 1, I quit my messy lifestyle. And by that, I started to take my health more seriously. My second heart attack at age 55 was the wake-up call I think I needed. I had had a heart attack at 52, but me being me, I thought I was invincible, and I continued to lead this lifestyle that was late nights, going out, skipping meals. It was all a big old mess. I knew I had to go to bed before the dawn chorus. I knew I needed more sleep. We all know that, but in my 50s, I felt invincible, and I wasn't. By actually acknowledging that my health had to change was the very start. So number 1, I quit my messy lifestyle. So number 2, quit the self-doubt and started to like myself. Very slow process. I've got to be honest, when I would look in the mirror, I didn't like the person that was looking back at me. I had what I would consider to be this huge ego, but my self-esteem was actually quite low. I lived with shame and guilt for God knows what, but everything I did, I felt guilty about. I felt shame about. I was always people pleasing. I was never on the right path, and it was that person that looked back in the mirror that I never felt was good enough. It's easy to say start liking the person in the mirror, but actually it's quite hard. The very first thing I did to change that, and it was really small, was I started with daily gratitude. I had seen the power of meditation, and I decided to try it. Meditation, gratitude. Every single morning I started with something to be grateful for. Every single day I was grateful and said so. But through mindfulness and gratitude, I started to build my self-esteem and confidence. But I'm going to tell you a little story about mindfulness and how I was actually introduced to it. I had started a brand new job, and we were doing 3 months of training, and I was in head office. We were training to be drug and alcohol counsellors. The trainer took us on a mindful walk. If you've ever been to South London, Vauxhall, you will know that it is not a quiet place. And there we were, crocodiling down the high street, not saying a word, just taking in the sounds, feeling the leaves on the tree, just listening to the sirens, and just being mindful in that moment. It was the most profound thing I've ever felt. We got back to head office, we sat there, the noises all seemed very loud, but my goodness me, that was mindfulness. In South London, able to block out everything and just being mindful of walking in that space. Once I started on this process, that perhaps was one of my biggest changes, mindfulness and gratitude. Number 3, quitting alcohol. Giving up alcohol was a significant step for me, and alcohol over the years had been a crutch that I would lean on, something that I would use to get me through social events, something that was always there, going out to restaurants, everything I did, certainly my job, alcohol was a large part of it. I saw something about alcohol advertising. This advert started off with a young girl going out for the evening. As she was getting ready, she started to deteriorate. She was sick, she looked awful, she broke her shoes, she did everything that was horrible, and the actual tagline was, you wouldn't start your evening like that, so why would you choose to end it like that? Well, the big thing is, You don't choose to end an evening like that. And in my case, I didn't end evenings like that. But over the years, I found that alcohol did certainly play a larger and larger part in my life. At the time, it was just for the day. I decided today I would quit alcohol. So sobriety has brought me clarity of mind, being able to sit here and film things like this, and just having the ability to make healthy choices about my life. Do I miss alcohol? I've got to be honest, there are times in the summer when I walking in a nice summer's day and I do think, yes, it would be nice to have that beer in the pub. Yes, it will be lovely to go out to a restaurant when I'm handed these great big menu choices of alcoholic drinks and beverages, and there on the back page is just 4 or 5 choices for non-alcoholic drinks. But like the girl in the adverts, if I chose that path, it may not end with me looking like I do today. So do I miss it? No, I don't. I'm now able to play out that advert in my head and I don't miss it. Number 4, quit questionable habits. Along with the alcohol came other not very nice habits, and that would mean skipping meals, burning the candle at both ends, working phenomenally long hours, we'll come to that in a minute, but also drinking too much coffee, other things that get you through the day. All of those are questionable lifestyle choices, and with all of that, my boundaries would just disappear. I was always the person that wanted to have the most fun, and yet socially I was actually quite anxious. But with all of these messy habits, I was able to be what I thought people wanted to see. Once you start the quitting process, actually, it's easier than you think. Number 5, I quit my glamorous career for a more purpose-driven path. I have been in the travel industry for over 20 years. I was at a point in my career where I was visiting beautiful hotels, staying in some of the most lovely places that you could ever imagine, fine dining, and everything that went with luxury long haul travel. But along with that came very stressful long hours. It's a sales role, and I was always having to sell. I was always having to find the next client. But accompanying that was this level of stress that I had to keep going, sometimes till 11, 12 o'clock at night, and then winding down and then starting again the next day. It was during that time that I started to question the usefulness of me. I'm going to mention that at this point, I lost my son, who was only 25. And the way through that loss was to work. And I worked and I worked. And I didn't really start the grieving process. I worked and I drank. My then ex-husband was diagnosed with lung cancer. And that was quite a difficult time. I was with the editor by then, and we'd been together for some 20 years. But Paul was like a brother to me. And when I lost him, this actually really messed with my head. And I thought, what am I doing with my life? And I then took a step back. And at age 57, I chose a completely different career path. I decided that I wanted to work in the field of substance misuse, and by that I mean people that struggle with drug and alcohol, and in particular in a prison. So I changed my career at age 57 to become an apprentice for a trust. And not just any prison. The prison that I was chosen to work in was a Category B, which is a men's prison that highest offenders. It was at that point my life changed, yes, definitely, because instead of going to bed at 5 in the morning, I was having to get up at 5 in the morning. So all of this completely changed the way I looked at life, because it has to. So all of the things that were important to me once upon a time were slowly being stripped away. Now, this career path that I chose, it isn't for everybody, but I can honestly say that working in that environment was one of the biggest changes to me as an individual, as a person, because I was out there and I really felt I was giving back. Whether I did or didn't, I don't know, but I do know that at 5 foot, walking onto a wing of some of the most scary offenders, I was never scared. I found my self-worth. I found that my self-esteem was better. I was able to stand there and look them in the eye, and I didn't feel scared anymore. And I could look in the mirror and say, yeah, you're all right. So different environment, very different to travel. There weren't any material benefits. I didn't go to the Seychelles anymore, but life was different. Life was better. And I could say to all of those people that worried for me during those years, I'm doing something that I really, truly love. Number 6, I quit extravagant spending. Now, when I was young, I was known as Lady Bountiful. I would give expensive presents, I would buy expensive clothes, I would like to go to expensive restaurants, and I had this philosophy in my life. I would rather be dead broke in first class than just poor in economy, and that was my whole philosophy on life. Extravagant, big, go large. Well, obviously when I changed my whole career and I started to work in the prison, there was a whole different change in my lifestyle. There was a whole change in the way I looked at myself, the clothes that I wore, because you certainly couldn't wear extravagant clothes, nor would you want to. My life had already started to change at that point. Certainly giving up the alcohol and all the other things, the meditation, it did start me thinking about what I'm spending my money on. Now, I would like to say that today I am a reformed character and that I no longer do the extravagant spending. And I don't. But the editor has just said if I was somehow a millionaire, the old me would certainly come back. But right now, this was a goal that I used to try and set myself. Year on year, I would get my spending in check. Little story. It was during the breakup of my marriage with Paul, and I was struggling with my mental health, and I had visited the doctor, who was a friend, hasten to add, and I visited him for some support, and I was very sad and I was tearful, and I said, Paul had called me a cheap slut. And he looked at me, perhaps to levitate that and bring some humour to the situation. He said to me, well, one of those things isn't true. You're definitely not cheap. And I mean, of course I laughed, and I knew I had this reputation, and it was why things had to change. But now I can control it. Now there is a peace in my life, in my 60s, that desire, that need to be better than, that need for the biggest car, the biggest this, the best that. Honestly, it isn't there anymore. I quit the extravagant spending. I actually quit that some time ago, and yeah, I'm better today. I'm not brilliant, but I am a lot better today. Number 7, quit worrying what others think. This is a process that is ongoing. I started the transformation when I was 55 about not living up to others' expectations of me because I couldn't. But it is a very difficult process. I still find that if I put a film out there for you guys, and it has had lots of negative comments, and some of them have actually been quite personal, and I take it to heart. Why would I, you think? Why on earth would someone on the other end of a camera? I guess because I still do care what you think. But overall, that desire to make people happy, to do everything that somebody wants of me, to be that person, to be there when you ask me, is a difficult one to let go of. But I have. And I don't care what others think of me anymore. I mean, I wouldn't be doing this if I really genuinely did. And going through my marriage breakdown, again, that was another one where did I care? No, I had to do what was right. And I think that is a big transformation for me. Making the decision that you know is right, regardless of what those people that you love around you have an expectation of you. If you know that what you're doing is right and you trust what you're doing is right, then I am sure you will get the support from them. Quit worrying what other people think is an ongoing process, but I'm doing okay with it. Number 8, quit saying yes to to everything. That was a problem that I really did have, because my self-esteem was low, my ego was big, but I wanted to do everything. If someone said, "Can you do this, Cordelia?" Yes, I can. I have learnt that saying no takes a skill that was taught to me in my job, and saying no without too much explanation means that they don't come back and argue it out. Saying no makes it possible for me to stay grounded, for me to keep these boundaries in place, for me to stay sane. It's not just about saying no to you or no to you. It is more about, is this the right thing for me to do? If I genuinely don't want to do it, I'm going to say no. Number 9, quit holding grudges and embrace forgiveness. Okay, as an individual, I am quite a forgiving sort of person, but grudges I can hold with the best of them. So there is an old saying, he who carries the grudge holds the pain. Now I'm just going to tell you a very quick story. I live in the Brighton area, and Kim and I went to the Brighton Museum, and within that lovely museum is Meet the Ancestors, and this is all about Neanderthal ancestors that lived in or around the Brighton area. In that area, meeting the ancestors, I saw Ditchling Lady, little village not far from Brighton, and she wasn't a Neanderthal, she was a nice Anglo-Saxon lady, and I saw myself as the Anglo-Saxon Ditchling Lady. I did not see myself as Neanderthal. I was not one of those people. But let me tell you, when I get angry and when I get resentful, this is what I refer to. I use it as the ancestors have come knocking on the door, because believe you me, if I hold on to a grudge, if I get resentful, those ancestors are there, and they are ugly, and they are not nice, and they mess with my mental health. For what? Because someone's cut me up, because I didn't get served properly in Tesco's or Waitrose, or because someone way down the line on my YouTube channel has said a very nasty thing. No, not anymore. So I try and keep the ancestors at bay, and I try not to let them come out to play, because believe me, they're there. So letting go of grudges and apologising, that's a really big deal for me now, because sometimes I get angry, sometimes I say things to really and truly the people that I love the most, because if you don't apologise, it's not good for the mental health, it's not good for me. Number 10, and possibly most important for me now, is I quit the late nights and I prioritise sleep. When you work in an environment that requires you to be at work at 7 in the morning, you cannot be going to bed anything later than 9 o'clock at night. And I found that those years ago, when I started to get in a sleep hygiene regime, I did find that it was easier to control all of the step 1 to 9, having a good night's sleep. It's so easy for me to underestimate how important it played in my life. Now, we see it every day on YouTube, sleep hygiene, get a good night's sleep. But the one thing that really helped me was that I had Fitbit watch. Other watches are available, but the other watches that help and monitor your sleep. This is what I was aiming for, 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep. There were many nights I would not sleep at all, or just 1 or 2 hours. This really messes with that. 7 or 8 hours. I wake up in the morning. Now, I'm not a good sleeper. I wake up frequently, but nevertheless, staying in that bed for 8 hours has been the best thing for my mental health. 10 things I changed in my 50s. When I was in my youth, the idea of being in my 60s seemed ancient. It didn't seem possible, and what the heck, what's the point? But here I am now in my 60s, and without all of those changes that have gone on before, I wouldn't be here sitting in front of you. I left the prison service and I started a YouTube channel because of all of those changes that I'd made previously, because I felt I had the confidence to do it, because I had the support of somebody else. So all of those changes have enabled me to start a life in my 60s, to be exciting, to have adventure and to have travel. Now, none of those would have been possible if I hadn't started with one small change, and that small change was mindfulness and gratitude. My God, that was huge. And obviously Giving up alcohol is huge. All of them are huge in their own right, but each one can be and should be quite small. That is what I'm saying to you. If you've got changes that you have wanted to make, that every single new year you make this goal, just start with a small one. Come back a bit, step back a bit. Start with gratitude. It's an easy one to start with, and it makes you feel good. That was what I have done and why I'm able to be here in front of you. And I hope that this film has given you something to be reflective of. And if you liked it, well, I hope you liked it, press the like button. And obviously it would be really useful if you left some comments, what you want, what you change, what you got out of this. I'd really appreciate it. And while you're at it, ding the bell, because when you ding the bell, this alerts you to content that we're uploading like this every single week. And subscribe, because when you subscribe, it lets the algorithm know we're doing something right and it helps us to grow. But in the meantime, if you've made it this far, jolly well done, and I thank you. And enjoy the rest of your day, your morning, your evening, weekend, wherever you are in the world. And I will see you soon. Thank you.